Welcome to Women Don't Do That, where we empower you with inspiration, knowledge, and skills to redefine your boundaries and unleash your potential. I'm Stephanie Minton, founder and CEO of Beacon North Strategies and your guide. Small town girl turned CEO while navigating career, motherhood, ADHD, and chronic migraines. Our conversations range from interviews with visionary women to solo episodes filled with actionable insights. We are your hub for turning what ifs into let's go. Are you ready to redefine your possible? Let's get started. Today, I'm excited to talk to you about what it's like to have a traveling spouse and tips I have for those of you living that experience. Now, sometimes I'm the spouse that travels, but not very often. And my husband and I both do it for fun and then also for work. And so I'm happy to share what I've learned. My spouse started traveling for work when my kids were toddlers. And at the time I live in Canada, he was traveling to Asia at least 3 weeks at a time, a couple times a year. Now he travels 1 or 2 weeks a month, sometimes not for the full week. And so travel is really something that we've gotten very used to. And so I thought I would share with you some of the things that we keep in mind or that work for us and work for me as we navigate that experience. I am a busy working mom with kids. I am a founder and a CEO. I have a demanding job and I do not have a 9 to 5 job. And so that also complicates things. And so let's dive into what that really looks like. Over time, I've learned to make things more manageable, and a lot of it comes down to mindset. So let's jump into that today. So I think first off, it's about building a life that you can actually manage on your own. You will be alone if your spouse travels, and so plan for it. And so if you can't have your kids in two different places and two different activities in one night, then don't do it. And sometimes you might have carpooling and then you can make it work. Or sometimes you might have a grandparent that lives nearby, and that's great. But sometimes you won't. And so keep that in mind. And it does mean that sometimes you need to simplify. And it's not weakness, it's wisdom. You need to have something that makes sense for your life. So be realistic about your capacity, and sustainability matters more than perfection. So make sure whatever activities they've got going on, whatever you've committed to for work, are things that you can manage on your own in some way. My kids are also now tweens and teens, and so that has really changed things. It was a lot harder for me when they were young. One, my partner was gone for longer periods of time, but also they need a lot more hands-on help and are more tiring. I now have teens. They want to be all over the place and having you drive places, but they can stay home alone too. And so that has definitely changed the dynamic. For instance, when my spouse traveled a few years ago and one of my kids couldn't be alone and I had started going back to the gym, I picked a gym that had daycare so my youngest could come with me. Now my youngest is old enough to stay home alone, and so that's not really an issue. The second thing I want to talk about today is really having a backup system. So you will need help. And so you need to have, and this is for anybody that has kids in any kind of capacity, whether you're a working mom, a single mom, all the things, you need to have your A, B, C, D lined up, right? Like you will be sick one day, your child will be sick one day, and you might be at something at work that you actually can't leave. What is your A, B, C, D? Create relationships with those people if you don't have them. Pay for them if you can. When my kids were little, our family didn't live close enough to help a kid get on the bus if a parent needed to go to work early. And so we would pay a neighbor's teen to often do that. We also had neighbors that we became close to that would help with our kids sometimes. And so when you have the capacity and time to pay it forward for other people later in your life, do that too, because we all make the world go round. But hopefully you have some people nearby. If not, maybe you can pay for it. But trying to plan for who is your ABCD is important because it will absolutely happen. Absolutely. I also tell people sometimes when my spouse is away, especially if they ask, can you do this? Can you do this? Sometimes they'll flag, hey, Ralph's away. That's a little bit more challenging. I do a lot of carpooling and parenting with another mom. And so often she'll drop off, I'll pick up. And if Ralph is away, sometimes she'll even jump in and do a bit more. And so I don't necessarily announce it, but I will share it with people that need to know. And sometimes then we figure out a way to make all the things work. For instance, I have a daughter who has a group of friends and they really like to do things every Friday. And so if they're doing something that's not at our house, often I'll say, I have your sister and her friends at our house. It's just me. So either you can't go or you need to find a ride home. And she often will do that. And so letting people know, letting your child know, I can't do as much this week because it's just me is really important. Get rid of some of that guilt around asking for help or accepting it because you will just need to. You are not meant to do all of this alone. And again, that's not just for people whose spouses travel. If you're a single parent or something like that, you will need help sometimes too. You also need to adjust as kids grow, right? And so age makes a big difference. As I talked about, the challenges are different when kids are older versus when they're younger. It is a game changer. And so things have definitely gotten easier for me from a certain perspective now that the kids have gotten older. And it opens up some breathing room now, a new sense of confidence for everyone. And again, saying no is okay to some of the plans they have or trying to help them figure out ways that maybe they can do what they want, but by getting a ride or something like that. The fourth thing I want to talk about is to outsource when you can. And I recognize that that is a privileged thing to do, and not everybody is going able to do it. But if you can, it can be very helpful. And it doesn't always have to be something bigger and luxurious like a cleaning person. It could be something like meal prep if you're able to, or ordering groceries to your house, maybe where you live, that's a small fee. So some of these types of things can be helpful. And maybe in those cases, you can trade off with other people if you need to as well. I have friends that have done that before, traded off for childcare with each other so the others can get something done or even go get their nails done. And so trying and figure out to outsource, whether it's paid or not, to really help you kind of make things work. I really feel like sometimes as a busy working mom, I still do, even though my husband's helpful more around the house than him on a day to day. And I'm a founder and CEO, and I don't work 9 to 5. I have a busy life. And when people say to me, how do you do it all? The reality is I don't. And I do use some of these types of services to help manage all of the things. Number five is to schedule your own breaks if you can. I remember when my kids were little and my spouse would travel for those big chunks of time, I learned to book ahead of time a babysitter at least once before he went. So I would have one night to look forward to with my friends. I would be exhausted going, but it was so good to just get out and laugh and not have to think about the kids and either have a grandparent over or have a paid babysitter so you can go and have fun. And so try and build in some of those quieter moments. My kids, one or both of them, will often have people at our house Friday night. And although that can seem crazy, sometimes there are a lot of children at my house. But the reality is, they are older now. They're usually in the basement, kind of keeping to themselves. And I often can read a book, watch a movie. It's great on a Friday because I can just, yes, I need to stay home, but I can chill within my house. And that can be alone or also bringing friends over as well. So again, say yes to help, plan for breaks, and stop pretending that we have something to prove because we don't. We put a lot of this pressure and guilt and stress on ourselves. Number six is strong communication. Try and let your partner know, and we're not always all good at this, ahead of time when you're traveling because that really helps respect people's times, lets people plan all the things to try and ensure that we do have success during these types of things, right? And strong communication, but kind of more broadly, is so important. Communicate openly during, before and after travel. It might not be realistic or helpful to try and stay in constant contact with your partner when they're traveling. You may decide ahead of time what works for you guys, what doesn't. Do you have time changes? When does it work with the kids? When somebody is traveling in Asia, I think if I remember correctly, it was great to just have a quick talk before school, but it would have to be quick, right? And so maintaining some of that communication is important for your kids and their relationship with your parent and also for your relationship with that parent. Be mindful of time zones and routines. Sometimes a thinking of you text can go a long way, or good luck with your presentation today. And I think the other thing that's really important is to recognize what the other person is going through and showing appreciation. And that, of course, as a person who's often at home, is something I need to hear. But there are also moments where your partner needs to hear that too. Maybe you're a stay-at-home mom and your partner's been putting in crazy long hours, and you really want to recognize that extra work that they've been putting in to get that bonus, or vice versa. The seventh thing I want to talk about today is really about empathy and understanding, and it's really related to that last point that I made, which is about when your spouse gets home or when you're the spouse that comes home, you are both tired. And so remember, they're tired, you're tired, right? And to keep that in mind, that there's still this transition to when they come home. Of course, your partner needs to pitch in, but they may not pitch in right away at full capacity. Maybe they've had a time zone and weren't able to sleep on the plane. Maybe they were on the type of trip. Most work trips, you don't actually get to do anything fun. My husband recently went to Vegas and he had work stuff all day and all evening. So sometimes, for instance, one time he went to Turkey and he booked an extra day to do fun stuff and visit Turkey. And I was like, that's great. If I went that far, I would want to do it too. When I go on work trips, I often am in Toronto and I have an aunt there. So I often book an extra day or two to spend with her and spend time with her while I'm there because otherwise I don't get to. And so we both encourage each other to do those kinds of things as well. And to just keep in mind that they may not, yes, they were having a break from home, but they may not have been doing anything fun. So sometimes there, so, but it's all a balance. So re-entry back into the home and back into routines can be difficult. Sometimes one person really wants to go out and do things, go out for dinner, do fun things with the kids, and the other person is exhausted and tired, has been out of the house and just wants to chill. And I've noticed these dynamics too, different times when one of us or both of us have worked from home or vice versa, right? And the same can be true for travel. And so talk about the empathy and understanding what you're seeing, the challenges you're facing, and really recognize each other's needs and have respect throughout that. And that really goes back to that strong communication and the mindset pieces that we talked about earlier. Number eight, I would say, is independence and partnership. And this really goes a long way throughout your relationship. Both of us in my relationship are very independent people, and that works really well. You can be a couple, but you can also function very well individually. I think some of this was ingrained from when our kids were little, right off the bat. He would play hockey in the evenings. I didn't work a 9 to 5 job. And so even from when I went back to work after mat leave, we had to take turns doing stuff with the kids alone, putting them to bed. So there was never times where I would go out with friends or things like that where I always had to go back for bedtime or had to come back early. And those things make it so much easier where one or both of you want to travel or even just go out with friends. And it makes you realize you're capable, that I don't need to set up food for my husband when I go out for dinner with friends. He can make dinner himself. He can order McDonald's. Like he can handle it. And it's really hard to do sometimes, especially if somebody's not going to do things the way that you would, but you will find more and more the easier it gets, even though it's hard. So that's what I'll say about that one. I know that could be very challenging for people, but it builds trust, it builds skill sets, and it does make travel easier, for instance. It means that you don't need to leave big how-tos. If you are a strong co-parent and we know there's different ranges of that for different reasons, right? In terms of how much your partner is or isn't involved in your child's life. But the more that they are, the less you have to leave those kinds of details for folks. I will sometimes say to my spouse, like, hey, so and so has this day, so and so has this day. And then it's up to him. If they don't show up, like there's only so much I can do. And so I try not to over control it all because I can't. I physically can't. I can't be worried about it. There's only so much you can do. And now that my kids are older, that helps too because especially my teenager, like she needs to learn to manage her own schedule. And when other parents, when teachers, or when they come to me and say, "Can I do this Saturday? What about this?" I'll say, "I'm not here that weekend." So if you want to know if you can go do that with your friends, you really need to go ask your dad because I'm not going to be involved and it's not my decision. And then he gets to handle all of the things around that and make those decisions because I won't be here. It also helps, as I mentioned, just builds that confidence for all of us that we can do it. And so I actually think it's healthy. Like, even when your kids are really little, if you're not traveling, just to build up that experience where both of you can do things on your own. The other thing I would add is don't isolate yourself when your spouse is gone. Plan things to look forward to. And I talked about that a little bit earlier. Sometimes people will offer to come stay with you, family, or you go stay and visit with them. If that helps you, great. If it doesn't, maybe don't do it. Make plans with friends, like I talked about. Enjoy some solo time. I think both my partner and I are like, the house is empty. Like when one of us leaves and takes the kids somewhere and takes all like the kids too. That is like, it's so nice. And I actually often find I'll come back and sure, my husband probably did some chill time, but he'll have often fixed a bunch of stuff around my house. Things that he maybe wouldn't have even got to if we were there, and vice versa. For me, sometimes it's those Friday nights, right? I'll be at home. My kids will have those friends over. Sometimes a friend will come over too, and we'll laugh, eat chips and dip, have a cheesy Hallmark movie, like lean into some of those moments that maybe don't work as well when your partner is there. And sometimes I just do that by myself too. I'm exhausted Fridays from work. I feel like I crawl into Friday nights and doing something like ordering pizza and chilling while there's teens in my house doing something else is actually awesome. And there is some day that their laughs and annoying sounds will be missed, and I know that. And of course, it's also a great time for girl dinner, having girls, right? My husband is a beefy man who likes potato and meats, and like big meals. And so he makes them. Sometimes I make them. However, sometimes when he's gone, it's nice to more have like a picnic type meal that the girls and I more enjoy. And so lean into some of that stuff. It's great. Number 10 is really about the parenting side. So you want to involve your kids, let them know when their parent is coming and going. That's really helpful for them to know. Give them a heads up. Sometimes we forget because we're so busy, but I think that's really important. Of course, helping them to connect to your partner while they're away is important. It can be quick calls, texts, photos, especially as they get older. Acknowledge their feelings. They might really miss their parent, and that could be hard and something you need to figure out and navigate as well. And trying to do things like keep your routines fairly normal and stable is something that can really help them feel safe and secure. We often make it fun in terms of having sleepovers with me while their dad is away. It's not something they have to do, although sometimes I want them to because I feel lonely, but they take turns and that's kind of fun for them and they quite enjoy that. My husband often will bring gifts home from his trips, sometimes bigger things, sometimes smaller things. And he used to travel in the US a lot, and it was pretty funny. Sometimes me as well. I don't worry. Like, if he finds something that I will really enjoy and that's perfect for me, he'll buy it for me. But if he's just buying something for the sake of buying, generally he won't, which makes sense and I appreciate. I don't want to waste money. But one of the things he used to do is get t-shirts from all across the different places that he would visit in the US. And I'm talking like at least once a month. And so the girls loved it. They would be these graphic tees from different places. And at some point they were like, okay, you need to stop buying these t-shirts because now I have too many. He's also brought beautiful jade earrings from places. And I don't know, I personally can say that I feel like a little bit of a present goes a long way when you're tired and you're like, wow, jade earrings, how fun. It's nice to know that people have been thinking of you. And when I travel, I try and do the same thing, even if it's something really, really small, like some candy or something unique that you saw. It is very nice. So, number 11 is managing the travel rhythm. And so that's about building space around your travel time. I'm speaking more from this perspective as someone who has been traveling a bit lately for work. What is that like for me? And so you may find this as the partner spouse too, that this is something your spouse needs or even that you need once your partner is back. And so I find like a few days ahead of time, I need to look at my schedule and make sure, do I have time to do laundry? Do I have time to pack? What if before I leave, I'm preparing for this work trip and I'm actually going to need to work a bunch of late evenings. So I'm probably not going to maybe go to the gym that night or like do that extra thing that I was thinking of doing Wednesday night or say no to my child when they asked to go shopping that evening for something, right? And so doing some of those things. And the same on the flip side, time to unpack, do laundry, rest, reset. So I often find the weekend after being away from a trip or a work trip, I need at least a day or two at home to reset because I'm going to come home and hit the ground running in a busy life, and I may not unpack until that next weekend. And so build some of that time in, or that rat race of being exhausted and on to the next thing just never ends. And so just to build that breathing space to help get back to normal again and to learn to also just let go of some things. This week, I am not being able to go to the gym as much as I would like. I'm traveling for work tomorrow. And as long as I get back into my rhythm when I'm back, it's fine. It's not ideal, but this is the reality of my week this week. And just accepting it is makes it a lot easier. Number 12 is some more things about traveling for yourself. And my spouse and I not only travel for work, again, he travels more than I do, but we also each take at least one trip a year with our friends. He often goes skiing, and I often go for a weekend away with friends from university. And usually that's fairly local. One time I went to Winnipeg, but most of the time it's fairly central to Ottawa, Toronto, like within 4 or 5 hours of where we live. And that has been great again for us in terms of all the things we talked about earlier, in terms of getting comfortable, being on your own, managing things. And it can really refresh your perspective. When I went to Montreal last year with my girlfriends, I hadn't laughed so hard for so long. It is so good for your soul. It reminds you who you are outside of your home. It brings you closer to your friends. It's just amazing. Don't feel guilty about it. It doesn't make you less of a mom or a partner. And for us, I just found it awesome. You're each spending some time and money to do it. And I think we've done it pretty much. Maybe I'd have to go back and look in terms of COVID, but every year since university. So stay connected with your partner through that, but it is really healthy for all of you, including your children. I want to bring it all together with some final reflections. And so travel is really just part of our rhythm. It doesn't automatically throw life off balance. And sometimes it does feel like survival, if I'm going to be honest with you. But most of the time, that's because I have overextended myself, said yes to many things, built our schedule in a way that wasn't sustainable for me. And so really keeping some of these principles in mind will help you as you try and figure out what does this look like for you. And a reminder about that independent piece in partnerships can be so helpful for so many ways as professionals, as parents, as mothers, as friends, as individuals. My partner likes to watch football on Sundays. And when the kids were really little, he didn't do it. And now he does, and he's done it for a long time. And at first, I would get so annoyed. And now I just make plans without him. I know what he's going to do, but my kids and I like hiking and doing things. And we go hiking a lot with one of his sisters and her family. And people just know we're free to do things. We want to do things. And I'm happy living life with the girls and doing fun activities. I personally think he's missing out, but I don't just sit around and wait for them, right? Like, go do things, be independent. And that the goal isn't perfectionism. That will really take everything away from all the good things you're trying to build out in your life. And it's really hard, but eventually, hopefully, you will get to a good place. I would also say, don't, this is an addition at the end, worry and overthink everything. Things can be stressful. You can be worried about the safety of your partner. You can be worried about what they're really doing on their work trip, right? But that will drive you crazy and you cannot live like that. So you need to get to the point, hopefully, and hopefully your partner is a trustworthy person who can have communication and empathy and all of the things. And if you have strong communication and you're both good people, you can work it all out. And so again, that goal isn't perfection. I want to leave you with these final thoughts from Glennon Doyle and from one of her, she's an author, but she's also a podcast host. So here's one of the things that she says: be messy and complicated and afraid and show up anyways, right? And it's really about that independent and it's okay for things to be messy and you can still get the thing done. You can still manage life at home, even though it's hard. And that's really what life is about in some of the times these seasons of parenting and life is just showing up, whether your spouse is away, whether you're the one traveling, you're managing busy lives, you're a single parent, keep showing up. Show up with empathy, humor, and heart. Lean into your village. Be the village for other people. If this episode resonates with you, I hope that you will share it with a friend who's living this kind of rhythm too, or struggling, or send something to me on social media. I love when people DM me. Give me your favorite travel survival tip. I would love to know so I can make things more seamless in my own life as I try and manage all of this. So you've got this, and remember, it doesn't have to be perfect, just be real. Thank you and have a great week.
Thanks for joining us on Women Don't Do That. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating or review. Connect with us on Instagram at Women Don't Do That and visit our website www.womendon'tdothat.com for more details. Join our Patreon to support our work. Find all of the links in the show notes. Remember, you have the power to transform your what ifs into let's go. Together, let's redefine your possible. Until next time. The opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Women Don't Do That, Stephanie Mitten, or affiliated brands.